May 1941. A single German battleship sailed from the Baltic with a mission that could change the fate of the Atlantic. Within days, it struck down Britain's most iconic warship and triggered the largest naval pursuit in modern history. This is the fully expanded, ultra-long, 12,000-word documentary narration of Operation Rheinübung, the first and last voyage of the Bismarck. Operation Rheinübung began as one of the most ambitious, dangerous, and strategically significant naval missions undertaken by Germany in the Second World War, a mission shaped by political pressure, logistical calculation, and the evolving dynamics of naval warfare in the early 1940s. The centerpiece of this operation was the battleship Bismarck, a vessel that had become a symbol of German engineering, national pride, and naval aspiration. Weighing over 50,000 tons when fully loaded, equipped with thick armor belts, advanced fire control systems, and 8 massive 15-inch guns mounted in 4 dual turrets, the Bismarck represented not just a ship, but a projection of power, an attempt by the Kriegsmarine to challenge the British Royal Navy's supremacy on the high seas. Alongside it sailed the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen, lighter but fast, well-armed, and designed for long-range commerce raiding. Together, the ships formed a striking force intended to break into the Atlantic Ocean, disrupt Allied shipping, and apply pressure on Britain's supply lifelines, which were already strained by U-boat operations. The mission was overseen by Admiral Gunther Lütjens, an experienced but cautious commander who had previously led successful Atlantic sorties but now carried the burden of high expectations from the German High Command and Hitler himself, though Hitler's demands came with restrictive rules of engagement. On the evening of May 18, 1941, after weeks of preparation, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen slipped away from Gotenhafen under conditions of secrecy, moving through the Baltic Sea and threading carefully through narrow waterways and patrol zones that made early detection a real danger. The crew operated with intense discipline, scanning the skies for aircraft and the horizon for ships that could compromise the mission before it fully began. Weather played a crucial factor. Low visibility aided the breakout, but also complicated navigation. As they proceeded toward the Norwegian coast, the ships refueled in the Grimstadfjord, a necessary stop before attempting to enter the North Atlantic. However, despite German efforts at camouflage and timing, British reconnaissance aircraft, particularly a Spitfire from Coastal Command and later a Hudson patrol plane, managed to spot the German ships near Bergen. These sightings were relayed back to the British Admiralty, causing an immediate surge of activity. Churchill and high-ranking naval officers recognized the implications instantly. A powerful battleship like Bismarck entering the Atlantic posed a catastrophic threat to convoys carrying essential supplies to Britain. Orders were rapidly issued to deploy multiple Royal Navy groups, drawing forces from Scapa Flow, Iceland, and various escort fleets positioned to cover convoy routes. What had begun as a German breakout now became a race, a hunt spanning thousands of miles, involving battleships, cruisers, aircraft carriers, destroyers, and long-range patrol aircraft. Meanwhile, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen slipped out of the Norwegian fjords, heading toward the Denmark Strait, the icy, fog-shrouded passage between Greenland and Iceland. This region, notorious for harsh weather, limited visibility, and unpredictable currents, had long been recognized by the British as a likely exit route for German surface raiders, and thus they kept patrols stationed nearby. The British cruisers HMS Suffolk and HMS Norfolk, equipped with radar, technology increasingly becoming decisive in naval engagements, eventually detected the German vessels. Radar allowed them to track the Germans even in poor visibility, maintaining contact while avoiding engagement until heavier British ships could arrive. For hours, a tense cat-and-mouse dynamic unfolded, with the British shadowing and reporting positions, and the Germans maneuvering to avoid detection while still following their planned course. Lütjens hoped to pass through the strait quickly and lose the British cruisers in the open Atlantic, but circumstances denied that opportunity. On the morning of May 24, 1941, the situation escalated rapidly. The British battlecruiser HMS Hood, one of the most famous ships in the Royal Navy, accompanied by the newly commissioned battleship HMS Prince of Wales, moved in to intercept. Hood, though revered and visually imposing, had vulnerabilities. Its deck armor, designed before World War I, was insufficient against long-range plunging fire. Nonetheless, the British commanders believed that the Hood's speed and powerful guns, combined with Prince of Wales' modern firepower, would allow them to overpower the German ships. As dawn broke, the two sides closed distance. The British attempted to cut off the Germans' path to the Atlantic, angling in aggressively. At approximately 5:52 a.m., the battle began. Hood opened fire first, followed moments later by Prince of Wales. Bismarck returned fire, its massive guns sending shells arching through the gray northern sky. Prince Eugen also joined the battle, targeting Hood and successfully scoring several early hits. The sea erupted with explosions, smoke, and towering geysers of water from near misses. For a brief period, the outcome appeared uncertain. Prince of Wales suffered mechanical issues with its guns, including multiple jams, a result of being rushed into service earlier than intended. Hood maintained high speed and pressed forward. But suddenly, in a moment that would devastate Britain and change the tone of the entire operation, a shell, likely from Bismarck, penetrated Hood's weak deck protection and caused a massive explosion. The ship broke apart, engulfed in flame and smoke, and sank within minutes. The loss of Hood, along with more than 1,400 of her crew, stunned the British Admiralty and enraged the public. In London, Churchill issued the now famous directive, "Sink the Bismarck." From that point on, the mission shifted for both sides. For Britain, it became a matter of honor and strategic necessity. For Germany, survival became the priority. During the battle, Bismarck had suffered damage to its bow, causing flooding and loss of fuel, which significantly limited its operational range. Lütjens realized that the original mission of raiding convoys could no longer be achieved. He ordered Prince Eugen to continue independently, while Bismarck set a course for the French coast, aiming to reach safety in the port of Brest. But the British fleet was closing in from multiple directions. The cruisers Suffolk and Norfolk continued shadowing. Aircraft carrier Ark Royal, battleships King George V and Rodney, and numerous destroyers converged. Even ships far from the area were redirected, turning the North Atlantic into a giant trap. Lütjens sent radio messages back to Germany, which, though necessary for coordination, risked revealing Bismarck's location through signal triangulation. The British intercepted these communications, gaining valuable clues. Meanwhile, weather conditions shifted again, with fog and squalls complicating detection efforts. For several tense hours, Bismarck successfully broke contact and disappeared from British radar, leading to momentary confusion. Various British ships scoured the area, expanding the search radius. Long-range Catalina flying boats from Coastal Command played a crucial role, flying extended patrols across vast stretches of ocean. Eventually, one Catalina spotted Bismarck heading toward France, and the hunt reignited with renewed urgency. Ark Royal prepared to launch its aircraft, Swordfish biplanes that, despite their outdated appearance, had proven effective in previous naval engagements. On the evening of May 26th, in rough seas with heavy winds and low visibility, the Swordfish took off for a torpedo attack. Their slow speed ironically made them less vulnerable to anti-aircraft targeting. The first wave mistakenly attacked the British cruiser Sheffield due to poor communication and rapid deployment, but the second wave correctly found Bismarck. Overcoming intense anti-aircraft fire and violent pitch-and-roll motion of the ship, the Swordfish launched multiple torpedoes. One struck near the stern and jammed the rudder, causing severe steering problems that proved catastrophic. Bismarck could now only turn in large circles, unable to maintain a straight course toward safety. This single hit sealed its fate. Throughout the night, British destroyers closed in, launching torpedoes and maintaining pressure. Exhausted German crew members worked to regain steering control, attempting repairs under dangerous conditions, but ultimately failing. By the next morning, the British battleships Rodney and King George V approached for the final confrontation. At dawn on May 27th, the British opened fire. Bismarck responded, but its reduced maneuverability and previous damage limited effectiveness. The battle became increasingly one-sided as British shells inflicted severe destruction. Fires broke out, systems failed, and the ship lost its ability to continue meaningful resistance. Eventually, with the ship no longer able to fight and facing inevitable sinking, the crew initiated scuttling measures to prevent capture. Bismarck slipped beneath the waves shortly after 10:30 a.m., ending its only Atlantic sortie. The British attempted to rescue survivors despite the risk of submarine attack. Only a small number of crew were saved before worsening conditions forced rescue operations to stop. The sinking of the Bismarck concluded Operation Rheinübung and demonstrated the evolving reality of naval warfare. Aircraft, radar, coordinated fleet movements, and persistent pursuit could overcome even the most powerful battleship. The operation left a lasting legacy in naval history, symbolizing both the potential and vulnerability of surface fleets in the mid-20th century. Bismarck's story remains one of endurance, strategy, technological transition, and the dramatic interplay of human decisions and mechanical power on the unpredictable stage of the Atlantic Ocean. As the shockwaves of Hood's destruction rippled through the British Admiralty, the psychological and strategic weight of the moment reshaped the entire trajectory of Operation Rheinübung. The Royal Navy, despite already committing significant forces, now intensified its response to an unprecedented level, driven not only by military necessity, but also by national emotion and political pressure. Admiral John Tovey, commanding the home fleet, understood that the Bismarck's escape into the Atlantic would become a catastrophe, both materially, by threatening convoys, and symbolically, by allowing the most powerful German battleship to operate freely. Every available British ship in the North Atlantic, from capital ships to cruisers and destroyers, altered course toward the area where Bismarck was last sighted. At the same time, Prime Minister Churchill demanded constant updates, urging the pursuit forward. Meanwhile, aboard Bismarck, the situation was far less victorious than the outside world imagined. Captain Lindemann and his engineering staff assessed the battle damage and realized that a single shell from Prince of Wales had caused severe internal complications. The forward fuel tanks were ruptured, seawater contaminated thousands of tons of oil, and the ship's bow section was partially flooded. These problems significantly reduced the ship's operational range and damaged her hydrodynamics, making maneuverability difficult at high speeds. Admiral Lutyens, understanding the gravity of this issue, had to face a strategic dilemma: continue the commerce raiding mission as originally planned, or abort and head for a repair facility in occupied France. The latter was seen as the only realistic option. His belief that the British fleet would eventually lose contact was strong, especially given the poor weather conditions and the ship's powerful engines. Thus, Bismarck turned southeast, aiming for the French ports of Brest, Saint-Nazaire, or possibly La Rochelle, all protected by strong German air defenses and U-boat patrol lines. As this decision was made, Lutyens also ordered Prinz Eugen to separate and continue raiding independently. The cruiser, faster and undamaged, slipped away under the cover of worsening visibility, and the British, momentarily confused by radar echoes bouncing in fog and heavy seas, lost precise identification of the two German ships. This brief tactical success gave Bismarck a slim chance of escape. Yet, the Royal Navy's radar-equipped cruisers Suffolk and Norfolk maintained distant contact, sending continuous position updates through the night. Their shadowing operation, performed in bad weather, required precision and discipline. The cruisers could not risk closing the distance. Bismarck's 15-inch guns could outrange and outgun them easily. They remained far enough away to avoid direct combat, but near enough that Bismarck could not vanish completely. Aware of being tracked, Lutyens ordered multiple course changes to break radar contact, sometimes turning sharply through fog banks and rain curtains. For a few hours, these maneuvers worked, and Bismarck disappeared from the British cruiser's screens. This was the first major break in the chase. The Admiralty lost confidence in its surface tracking and began relying on perimeter searches, expanding the hunting zone. At the same time, the British fleet attempted to predict Bismarck's likely route. Several battleships, including HMS King George V and HMS Rodney, altered course sharply, burning fuel at high rates to reach interception points. Rodney, an older battleship with massive firepower, was originally escorting a convoy heading to Canada. But the Admiralty reassigned her immediately. The convoy was left with other escorts while Rodney steamed at full speed into the northern Atlantic. Fuel consumption became a critical issue. British ships were moving far faster and farther than originally planned, and with the home bases far away, Each new course change brought logistical complications. But every commander understood that losing Bismarck would be unacceptable. Meanwhile, Bismarck's situation was becoming more complicated internally. The flooding in the forward compartments worsened as the ship encountered high waves, and engineers worked continuously to counterbalance the weight shift by pumping fuel and ballast water aft. Damage control teams operated under intense pressure, stabilizing the ship, but unable to fully restore her capabilities. The psychological state aboard Bismarck remained professional but tense. Although they had triumphed in battle, the crew felt the pressure of being relentlessly pursued by one of the largest naval coalitions ever assembled. Periodic radio communications between Bismarck and German headquarters became a double-edged sword. While Lutyens needed to update Berlin about the mission's status, each message risked revealing the ship's location through British radio triangulation. In fact, British direction-finding stations detected several of these transmissions and narrowed the search window. This information was relayed to the Admiralty, strengthening the belief that Bismarck was heading toward France. At the same time, German U-boats attempted to move toward the expected route, hoping to provide some measure of support or at least interfere with pursuing British ships. But the distances involved, combined with miscommunication and the speed of the chase, made coordinated support difficult. The most dramatic turning point occurred when long-range Catalina flying boats from the Royal Air Force joined the search. These patrol aircraft, operating from Northern Ireland and Iceland, had the endurance to scan large ocean areas that ships could not quickly reach. On the morning of May 26th, one of these Catalinas spotted Bismarck in rough seas. This sighting was the breakthrough the Admiralty needed. The chase tightened again, and the final pieces of the British counterstrike were put into motion. Aircraft carrier HMS Royal, operating near the area, launched its Swordfish torpedo bombers. These slow, biplane aircraft, outdated in design, flew through turbulent weather, often nearly stalling in the powerful crosswinds. Their pilots demonstrated exceptional courage as they pressed home torpedo attacks against one of the most formidable battleships afloat. The first strike group mistakenly attacked the cruiser HMS Sheffield due to miscommunication, but the second group found the Bismarck. Torpedoes were launched at close range in a chaotic and dangerous attack run. Several were evaded or exploded prematurely, but one struck near the stern, jamming the rudder at a fatal angle. Bismarck could now only turn slowly in a circle, unable to steer toward France, unable to maneuver effectively, and fully exposed to British convergence. The crew attempted emergency repairs, sending divers into flooding compartments, but the damage was too severe to fix at sea. With nightfall approaching and the weather worsening, British destroyers closed in to conduct harassment attacks, launching torpedoes and star shells throughout the night. Though these attacks caused limited physical damage, they exhausted the German crew and prevented rest or coordinated repair efforts. The situation inside Bismarck grew more dire. Ammunition for some secondary batteries ran low, fires burned in multiple sections, and exhaustion spread through the ship. By dawn on May 27th, the Bismarck, crippled yet still defiant, prepared for the inevitable final battle against the converging British battleships Rodney and King George V, as well as additional cruisers and destroyers closing from multiple directions. The end of Operation Rheinübung was approaching, but the ship and its crew intended to fight until the last possible moment.